We do have a special guest. We have Republican candidate for Senate District 21. Of course, this is Paul Bookout's former seat. John Cooper is with us. John, thanks for coming on again, sir.
Glad to be here again, Paul, and we appreciate the opportunity and the invitation to come.
Well, no problem. And you know that all of your opponents, really even on the Democrat side, they are welcome. Right. All you have to do is get in contact with me, and you can do it very easily. The email address, paul@answer2.us. You can call and leave a message on our line, our studio line, which is 870-275-9799. John, tell us a little bit about, today is the anniversary of September 11th. What does that mean? What does that mean to you?
Well, it's a very solemn day, considering the events that occurred on that day. I remember sitting in my living room that morning and watching that, and it just so emotionally impactful that watch that happen. And you look at a TV, and I'm sure you don't get any of the impact that the people living in the city around there were feeling, even if they weren't at the location. And you can imagine families that had loved ones and people had gone to work that day and gone up in those towers and then lost contact in some cases with people in those towers. And then there were some people that couldn't get down that did have contact with their family.
Yeah, and that had to be the I can't imagine that.
So bad.
Yeah.
And today I was very pleased to be able to attend a meeting, a memorial actually is what it was, out at the mall. It's sponsored by the Elks out there in commemoration of the events of that day, of the people that serve this country to keep us all safe, the firefighters. And it wasn't just veterans. It wasn't just a veterans memorial, but it was the firefighters and the other service people that were also involved in that. And very moving, very good memorial.
Yeah, well, it's important to remember.
I'd like to commemorate the people that, or mention the people that put that on. I believe that organization is the first time I believe that they have done that, and I don't think it will be the last.
Okay, good. I know. It's the hashtag, I guess, around Twitter is never forget. So it's. Right. It is important never to forget, and right. I know, what's unfortunate is this is like, I think, the one day a year they actually show the footage of the towers coming down and the planes going in, and there's a lot of speculation that they only do it once a year because
I think there is some plans to start doing some of that twice a year, if I got the conversations right.
Okay,
but. The fact is that as time goes on, people do tend to forget. Memories fade, and we need to keep that memory alive in this country.
I completely agree. Okay, so let's talk about the campaign.
Okay.
What are you doing to get voters to vote for you in this special election? I think, October the 8th?
Right.
So we don't have a lot of time.
Right. It's coming fast. There's not going to be enough time, I don't think, to do all of what we want to do. Won't be able to contact as many people as I would like to personally, but that is what I'm doing. I love the personal contact in the neighborhoods, and I've been doing that, and I just love that kind of campaigning because I learn a lot from doing that. I've also been very impressed in the neighborhoods that supported me before, people in houses and families that I know supported me before, and I go there and they're impressed that I come again. And they tell me they supported me before, and I tell them I'm the same person I was before that they supported. I love the carryover in that regard, and I think the reception has been excellent. I just really do. I'm very comfortable with where we are. I know the issues, and I'm comfortable with the issues. I don't engage in a lot of political double talk. I think you know that. I've been pretty plain with where I stand on especially the more public issues that people are talking about often. the public deserves to know where we stand, and we deserve to, I think we have the obligation and the duty to tell them.
Well, it's interesting that you've said that, because I'm just going to be honest with you guys, folks. We have, there's a lot of reports out there, and I honestly, your opponent, Chad Neal, Dan Sullivan, Dan was on the program the other day, and the big topic, I guess, is the private option.
Right.
Everybody wants to know where people stand.
Right.
Now, this is where I'm confused, because your opponent, Mr. Chad Neal, who I know and who is a nice man.
Right.
Jason Tolbert wrote a piece that he tweeted out last night over at Talk Business, and he said all three candidates have come out against the private option. Now, I think Dan Sullivan's qualification, he said he didn't want to look back and talk about how he voted in the past, but he did say he would vote to defund it if you could separate it from the DHS budget. He tweeted that out on Saturday. Chad Neal was quoted in the Tolbert piece, the quote that he had, basically said he was against the private option. However, Nicholas Horton over at the ArkansasProject.com has a piece, an interview. He has posted an interview with Chad Neal, and we're going to get into that in more detail. Yeah. I don't want to do that with you on the show, but we're going to do that on my show tomorrow.
Right.
And it's ambiguous. Then there's a Facebook post where it maybe sounds a little bit more like Chad Neal is against the private option. So let's just get you on the record. Let's. My point is this is an issue that is kind of being. It's like a hot potato. It's like, I touched the potato for a little while. I'm going to pass it off. John Cooper, let's get you on the record. What do you think about the private option? Would you have voted for it, and will you defund it?
That is pretty much the question that Tolbert asked me before. He asked me two questions about that. Was I for it, and would I vote to defund it? And I answered those two questions in one sentence. Yes, I'm opposed to it, and I will vote to defund it.
Okay.
And I have not had to take a month or two to figure all that out. That's been my position from the get-go, and reaching all the way back as far as the private option or Obamacare was being discussed. Obamacare has been around since 2009. If somebody can't figure out where they stand on that by now, I don't know if they'll ever figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the private option is a little bit different issue. It doesn't necessarily fold in 100% with Obamacare, because there's people that try to separate the two. You remember the Twitter discussion?
Yes.
And what happens there, people like to say they're opposed to Obamacare, but then they're for the private option. So you have to realize what question to ask. Well, I'm opposed to Obamacare, and I'm opposed to the private option, and I want to defund the private option as well.
Okay. So, I
don't know how to put it any clearer.
Exactly. And so I'll ask you another question, just a little more specific.
Right.
Do you think the private option is good for Arkansas?
No, definitely not. It is not good. It's something that is going to be the mechanism for Obamacare in the state, basically, largely. And Obamacare, whether it be you're talking about just the federal bill or the one that's involved in Arkansas, good medicine and Obamacare is never going to be mentioned in the same breath in the future. They're incompatible with each other.
Let me.
Doctors are realizing that also.
Yeah, let me share a story with you real quick. I have a colleague that I work with,
right,
and he needed to get his daughter some insurance.
Right.
Now his employer pays for his insurance, a very, very good insurance. This friend of mine. It's pretty expensive.
Right.
Pretty expensive though to add family members.
Right.
So he wants to go and get his daughter a Blue Cross Blue Shield health care policy. And they quote him at $85 a month to get her insured, and it's not bad. I mean, it's pretty good insurance. I mean, it's not great, but there's benefits and as far as prescription drug and that kind of thing, and catastrophic. She's young, and the Blue Cross Blue Shield asks him the question. He was like, well, are you offered insurance at your employer?
Right.
And he says, yes, I am. And she says, well, I can give you this policy for, I think it was $88. I can't remember, 85 or 88. I can give you this policy for 85 or 88 bucks, but if I do, the federal government's going to turn around and they're going to penalize you 1% of your income and your wife's income, your family income, your gross.
Right.
Because you didn't pay what would have been a whole lot more at his work that he can't afford. I mean, this is Obamacare. The concept was we're going to give people health insurance.
And also remember, those prices are going to go up dramatically as time goes on because by intention, they front-loaded the benefits and later the costs are going to skyrocket.
It's incredible.
Keep in mind also that one of the effects that it's having is on the economy, and that's going to grow because one of the last reports that I saw, 80% of the jobs that are being created right now are part-time employment. 80%. Now that's going to just totally devastate the economy.
And a lot of that is because they don't want to have to pay.
Right.
The part-time. And so the irony is we're gonna create two ironies here. We're going to create Obamacare to give poor people insurance, and then when you try to get people insurance, you're penalized 1% of your gross. We're going to create Obamacare to give poor people insurance, and then you're actually going to take away their jobs. So
they're not going to get it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's incredible. You've now taken their job away, so now they don't have insurance and they don't have a job.
Yeah, you've actually dramatically worsened their economic situation. Another thing, it doesn't make any difference what you put on paper that somebody is eligible for. If you can't deliver it, you haven't done them any good. And that's what Obamacare also does. They can write benefits all day long that they want to, that somebody can have, but if the health care system does not deliver those benefits, then they're no better off. And that's what's happening also.
Well, I'm glad to hear this discussion with you on issues. It is refreshing, John. And let me ask you this question. Do you think this campaign needs to be about issues, not just the private option, but do you think this campaign needs to be about issues?
Absolutely. I've got a long list of issues that I've specifically addressed on my website, and it bothers me that I don't hear that from the other candidates. They say they're going to study this, they're going to study that. They say, well, I'm ready to go down there from day one, and yet they're behind the curve on the issues. I feel comfortable with the issues, and I feel comfortable being specific with the questions and the issues because I believe I know the issues and I can defend my position. It's a pretty uncomfortable position if you can't defend what you take a stand on.
And that's very that's good of you to say that. I will say that if you don't know the important thing about getting on the record on issues is, number one, you're held accountable if you don't do what you say you do. If you can defend yourself,
if you take a stand on an issue and you have not researched the issue or don't know what you're talking about, it can be a pretty embarrassing situation. But if you know the issue, you're comfortable with whatever question comes. You're not afraid of the questions. Yeah,
and I would even argue you're not maybe susceptible to be led astray.
Right.
I mean, I think that as far as conservatives go, as far as limited government conservatives in this area, our biggest fear is exactly what we saw surrounding the private option. And I know I keep bringing that up, John, but it's more than take Obamacare out of the equation.
Right.
You had a massive issue, and the state legislator got down there, and they did everything short of sticking their fingers in their ears to not listen to their constituents back home about how they felt about this. Mm-hmm. They didn't, and so that's our fear. The biggest fear. That's why we want to know. We want to know where you stand, because if you go down there and you campaign, kind of ambiguous, indecisive, you might be led to do the same thing, and that's our fear.
I believe that I'm the most conservative candidate of the three of us on the Republican side, and I feel like that I know the issues the best. And I've thought about this a long time, and I am stable with what I have researched, and I'm confident that I know where I need to be on this issue, and I'll be there for the conservatives when the vote time comes.
Well, I do appreciate you coming on. Can we take a break and come back with you?
Sure.
Okay, yeah, we'll do one more segment. We're talking with John Cooper. He is Republican candidate for State Senate District 21. We got to go to break, folks. Back in a minute.